I really, when I think about it, I have two, but the one that really stands out is matsutake. Okay, my favorite food is matsutake, and also a secondary favorite food are strawberries, Oregon strawberries. I love matsutake because I grew up in our family every winter and fall going matsutake hunting. Okay, matsutake is a Japanese mushroom. Okay, it's called Pinus ponderosa. Okay, is the scientific name. Okay, and it's very delicate. It's known for its delicate flavor and its delicate odor, okay, for its fragrance, not its odor, but its fragrance. It's so fragrant that you smell it first before you eat it, and like you're picking it right off of the forest, okay, and you smell the forest, and that conjures up the memory of your picking it in the forest with all the nice forest odors and smells and fragrances in there, okay, with all the Oregon green and the rushing waters, okay, and so it's very memorable to me. I grew up from the time I was able to come back from Minidoka camp, and that's when I was about 9 years old, and I started every winter and fall going matsutake picking with mom and dad. And matsutake is a family type of thing, and in fact it's carried to the point where it becomes a family secret where you go to find these matsutake, because they call these matsutake su, which means a plot or an area where this matsutake grows. It doesn't grow anywhere. You have to have a certain condition. You have to have certain temperatures, certain sunlight, and you have to have a tree like a hemlock tree, okay, whose roots put out the rhizomes and encourage the matsutake to grow in fairy rings, okay, and the fairy rings, it starts in the middle one year, and then every year the ring expands, and matsutake grow around the ring, and it keeps expanding and expanding, okay, and if you find a ring, it's a family secret, okay, and so you don't dare go out of the family, so you pass it on to your children and your grandchildren, but you never ever share it with anybody else, okay, and there's another rule. It's also very close to a poisonous amaryllis mushroom, so you don't want to just pick anything. You want to pick, you have to have that texture, and you have to have the fragrance. So that is passed on in the family. The rule of thumb is you have to pass it through two to three generations. Okay, that means you got to pass it when you pick it from person to person. And if it passes the 2 or 3 person test, that's okay. You test the structure, the texture, and you test, and the telling part is the fragrance. It must have the fragrance. If it's not, if it's even questionable, you throw it away, okay, because it's so close to the poisonous amaryllis, okay, whose heads just pop right off. A matsutake is noted because it's firm and the heads do not pop up, okay? So it's very, very delicious and good. It makes the best soups, okay? And nowadays we have, in the old days, we used to get sacks, gunny sacks of 2 or 3 bags of matsutake. Okay, this was like, maybe, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And so we could come home, slice them up, and pan fry them with butter and very easy to prepare. You just pan fry it in butter in a big pan, and then you put it a whole serving of matsutake mushrooms, thinly sliced, on top of your hot steaming rice. And that was a delicacy that you never hear of today because you can't do that. All you can do today to get close to it is make sukiyaki, okay, with a few pieces of matsutake, studding the top of your rice, okay? Or a delicacy nowadays, the next delicacy would be the soup. The soup is so fragrant and so good that ritually and traditionally you sniff the soup, you allow the odor and the fragrance to go down, and everybody does that. And you ooh and you ah traditionally about the fragrance, and oh, the matsutake is so good, and you know you can tell, you can hear the purring in the voice, okay? Then you partake of it, okay? And it's really good. But nowadays it's gotten to the point where, and if you do get it, you have one little thin slice or two little thin slices, and all you could do is sniff that one little piece or the two little pieces. Okay, so that's the story of matsutake in my life. The strawberry is another. Okay, if you grew up in Oregon, especially the Japanese, because there were Japanese farmers out in the Gresham area that we wanted to support, okay? I'm 83 years old, so you know, about in those days, the farmers were getting established 100 years to 80 years ago. They were getting established before the war, okay? And so these farmers that came back from Minidoka and settled back on their farms would be known for their wonderful strawberries, okay, and their raspberries. But it was a ritual to go when you're turn about 13 or 14 to go strawberry picking. I love strawberries, okay, and again, I grew up with strawberries, okay. When in Oregon, and especially the Portland area, if you turn about, maybe by the time you're 12 or so, it's a tradition. Almost every, teenager would go and pick strawberries. Okay, that was a rite of passage. Okay, and we would pick Oregon strawberries. Okay, Oregon strawberries are different from the California and Mexican strawberries because they have a very short lifespan and are very tiny, but they're very delicate and very, very sweet, doubly sweet. The big fat Mexican strawberries that are red, and the California that are just pink and often white in the inside. Okay, so we would get that. Okay, of course, my favorite dish is with strawberries and ice cream in half or in slices, okay, to enhance the flavor, because you get the full flavor when you half it or you slice it. I was bussed out there, okay, most of the time, okay. There was one summer where I lived out for about, maybe several weeks, 3 or 4 weeks out there. And so we had to go we'd go home once in a while and get groceries and things. And then otherwise, we would get bussed out there, early in the morning at about 5 o'clock in the morning, we would be bussed, right? And even my kids, they were to the point where when they were, my son was like 8 or 9 when he started picking berries, and most of the berries would go into his mouth, right. And but my daughter, on the other hand, she was so industrious that she would go like this, and it was really unusual, very unusual, to be able to pick between $6 to $10 in at that time. Okay, my daughter and son are in their 50s now, so that shows that's about 40 years ago. And my daughter would just go on her, and she would, you know, she's little, so she'd go right on she'd go right down on her knees, and then she'd just bustle along, you know, and she wouldn't have to bend her back, so she could go real fast. And she was fast with her fingers. She'd pick with both hands. My son would go. So there was a difference. So anyway, he was lucky if he made $1 or $2, but then he was only like a little kid yet. Mom and Dad were one of, I don't know if they were a founder as such, but they you know, they knew the founders, and I guess initially they came during the beginning, so they were founders. Well, they were like friends, you know, of the people that founded Ikoino Kai, like the ladies that founded it. They were very close. So being that close, they automatically came to support the friends. Okay, and that recently we saw a sign that announced the anniversary of Ikoino Kai was either 42 or 43 years ago, okay? And that's how long that, I can't say myself I've been coming, but that's how long both my parents and I have been coming. My parents, Mom kept saying, even when she was sick at the end, she would say, I want to go to Ikoino Kai, I want to go to Ikoino Kai. Okay, it's going to be 30 years, okay? And about the time when Grandma was, my mom, was at the very last table at the end with 5 or 6 other Japanese ladies. She spoke Japanese, so she wanted to sit with the Japanese ladies, okay, that were Kibe. So she sat there, and she was, you know, was an associate of the founders, okay? I can't remember the founders' names, but if I remembered, I would, you know, share them with you, okay? But they were wonderful, wonderful old ladies, and at the end, I remember they're serving me tea because they would come faithfully and regularly when they could hardly do anything else, but they served tea. And these were the founding ladies that did that. And so it kept us together as a community. I think it's one of the main things that kept us together as a community, okay? Besides the presence of and growth of the churches. And the churches primarily in the southeast center of Portland, right here in our area, where our family also settled in 1948, okay? Have been, but the 4 churches in this area, the Epworth here, the OBT, the Oregon Buddhist Church, and the Nichiren Church, okay, and let's see, that's 3 churches, the 4th, okay, I can't remember, oh, the Henjoji, definitely the Henjoji Church, okay, they all had a big bearing on the start of this church.